because what you want to avoid is losing that control as a community of who comes in, because the membership process is one of the most important processes that a community
Mm,
has, because we've seen often the biggest conflicts, the most irreconcilable conflicts within community are because the membership process wasn't strong enough to determine a good fit
mm.
and a values fit from the beginning.
Booking Cynthia Tina for the Amagi podcast felt like a win because she's so experienced within communities. As the founder of Community Finders and the Ecovillage tours, she has gone around the world and worked with many communities in various capacities, helping them get started, triaging things when they're going wrong, but mostly helping people to find their community. And it's lovely that she draws from her own experience living in community as a resident of Headwaters Ecovillage in Vermont since 2019. What struck me during this conversation with Cynthia wasn't just the practical advice she had from working with communities, but how she exhibits in practice some of the benefits. In particular, this interview falls in a phase in her life where she's getting ready to get married and planning on hopefully becoming a mother. And I was really inspired to notice that clearly she is living with intention, and the very community she planted herself in years ago was one that she thought would support her in this future path, which really just goes to show there are so many different reasons people choose to live in community. And I hope you'll enjoy this interview with Cynthia, where we discuss the things that make or break communities, her entrepreneur's journey, her personal arc in community, and how we might address some of the most trying issues of our times by living as better neighbors.
Lovely to be speaking to you.
Oh, great to be here.
And are you still in Vermont?
Yes, I am in Vermont. It's a snowy morning here, even though it's
Yeah.
March and they say spring is coming.
Yeah, I've only been to Vermont once, but I was visiting some family up there, and they refer to that March, April season as mud season.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. We have
Yeah.
many
So
seasons in Vermont. Mud
I've heard
season.
the other three seasons
Yeah.
are a little
Six
bit better.
season. Yeah. There's there's a lot of different weather patterns here, which is fun to go with the seasons.
Yeah. And so you've been living in Headwaters there for a while then?
Yeah. So Headwaters Ecovillage is the community where I live. And the community itself is 17 years old, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. I've been here since 2019. That's when I joined the community. I purchased my little parcel of land
Oh,
within the bigger structure, and then I proceeded to build my house. So that's one of the interesting things about where I live is everyone who joins this community builds their own home. So I'm
yeah.
still actually building my house. I'm doing a lot of it by hand.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're in the plastering phase, so putting
Mm-hmm.
clay and lime plaster on the interior walls. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
a lot of hard work, but it's amazing to craft one's own home.
Yeah, I'm so into the idea. I haven't yet gotten to that stage of ambition, but just like you look into some of these permaculture practices or like ways of like eco building, let's say, and something that's as old as like lime plastering, there's like, oh, so it's breathable. So this thing where we just like build modern homes that like don't breathe, that's like a solved technology, but somehow like we're not using it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, yeah, it's I've learned a lot about the world of construction and sort of the normal way to do things, and then all these
Hmm.
alternatives, and there's so much to research and relearn and reskill. Because yeah, there is a more traditional way of building that has been lost. So it's good to re-explore that.
Yeah. So in your community, everyone has the opportunity to build their own home. Is there like a master plan? Are there like design specs or is like every house different?
Every house is pretty different. There are some things like we just want to limit the size of homes, not to have
Hmm.
mega mansions. We do have some guidelines around materials that are used, just to, like limit plastic, especially on the exterior walls. But at this point, the community is pretty much set. We have everyone
Yeah.
moved in. We are 8 households on 15 acres of land. And
Hmm.
that's kind of our capacity for the land and the good building
Hmm.
that we have. Yeah, so it's a nice neighborhood of clustered homes. And then we have another portion up the hill that has a big garden, a
Nice.
pond, two greenhouses. One of them is an Earthship design greenhouse. And that's sort of our community hub, is this
Hmm.
garden space, especially in the summer and the growing season. That's where we meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like a very comfortable number of families, like quite intimate, but like, you know, 8 households seems like you don't all have to be like absolutely best friends. You can sort of mingle, rotate,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It is a good number. And we're not like isolated. Sometimes people hear intentional
yeah.
community and they imagine like this bubble or this like, group off in the woods somewhere. We are
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
connected with our neighbors. I mean, it's hard to even distinguish on the social relationship side, like where the community begins and ends, because we're just friends with so many other families on
That's
this
nice.
hillside. And then, of course, just the 8 families need to make decisions together around finances and shared governance, all kinds of decisions that we make together. And then it is nice to have a smaller size. The 8 number is kind of a special number in the world of
Hmm.
intentional communities.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Tell
it's
me
kinda
more.
like if you get beyond 8 people, that's when you start need to add more structure, more
Hmm.
groups, a little bit more of a complex, organizational design. But if you can keep it
Yeah.
within 8, that kinda seems to be the number where people can comfortably carry on a conversation and reach decisions more organically. Sometimes, not
Mhm.
always. If you think of, I don't know if you've been to a wedding or another function where they have a round table. At
Sure.
at the round table, there's never more than 8 chairs.
Right. Right. You're sort of optimizing for like that constellation and
Yeah,
what feels manageable, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just like a one round of the sort of my forays dips into intentional community, we were having a discussion and I kind of like threw out like, okay, how big do we want this community to be? I feel like definitely Dunbar's number like max.
Mm,
Are you familiar with that metric?
yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
100.
I'm just like, okay, this is what we can naturally hold in our minds and for however adaptable humans are. Like, let's be real, like on the day to day, like let's help our monkey minds along and not make things more complicated. But Amagi has ambitions to get to like 200 homes.
Okay.
And that's always something that like when I talk to the like founding team, I'm just like, okay, okay, how do we do that?
Yeah, and how many are you at right now?
So right now it's still pretty cozy, because the core crew on Gaphangan over is living there full time, and they've been renovating for gosh, I feel like it's like a year now. So some folks have come and gone,
Mhm,
and so I think there's still like 2 or 3 people who have been like living there full time,
mhm,
and there's like another like 2 to 3 residences that are in like different states of repair and occupation.
mhm.
So still very much like getting things started on the ground, but doing a lot more like activities just to sort of start offering community, even if the housing side still has a long way to go.
Yeah, yeah, and that's great. That's the way to do it is build up the shared culture, the social
Hmm.
fabric. Because to a certain respect, the buildings are the easy part. I mean,
Mm.
know more or less how to build a building. Building a community is a little bit more, tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious about your take on that because so we've gotten so used to building homes for like private residences, for families, but like we've really lost kind of the social fabric that we used to have It's just like people used to just naturally live in villages. And in some ways it can be idealized. Like if I go out to like my mother's family's like home village, I'm just reminded about like what gossip is like and just like
Yeah.
everyone knows who you are. Like that's how we all lived once upon a time, right? So for some folks, like the anonymity of the big city was kind of like an escape and something fun. But yeah, we've kind of like lost a lot of the cultures and practices that like kept us all connected
Yeah.
with each other. And so now the architecture and like the housing market issue becomes a thing that like I feel like gets in the way, right? Like we're not fixing for the culture that we've lost.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think there's still just business as usual when it comes to real
Mhm.
estate. There is not a broad recognition yet that intentional community is something that we need and that we have lost, and it's something we should
Mhm.
try to cultivate with our design and architecture and how we structure our daily lives completely. And to make it even worse, not only have we lost community, but we are in this huge epidemic of loneliness, isolation.
Yeah.
There's studies that have come out that half of all Americans report feeling lonely on a regular basis. Um,
Yeah.
it's really, really sad. I mean, a lot of the folks I work with my community matchmaking, just hearing their stories, and they open up to me and very vulnerably sharing,
Yeah.
they struggle just if they're doing life as they should. They, have a job, they have the house, they got everything, but why is there this profound sense of loneliness and lack
Yeah.
of connection with the people around them? And yeah, it's not their fault necessarily. It's just
Yeah.
how we've designed and the decisions that have been made, at least in the last 100 years or so.
Yeah. Or rather, almost like if you're not thinking intentionally about designing for that, like
Mhm,
it can just disappear, which feels
mhm.
like when it's like happened a
Yeah.
lot, especially in like a country that's more like recently built, let's say, than America, right? Where you don't have just like the physical proximity of like walkability of like older cities like in Europe might just like have naturally, right? That's something that you have to actually then like come back and think about.
Mhm, mhm.
I'm kind of curious then with all of your journeys visiting intentional communities across the world and like advising on these things, like, do you feel like there's some templates in terms of like architecture or some of like the physical infrastructure that you feel is like absolutely essential?
Um,
Like sauna, is that a luxury item or is it actually like something that makes a
yeah,
big difference?
yeah.
Like, I'd love to hear your observations.
Okay, okay, great. Yeah, we have a sauna in our community, and it does feel like an essential thing here where I live in my climate because we have very long, cold winters, and sometimes the
Mhm.
sauna just, I'm actually doing it tonight. We do it at least once or twice a week in the winter months, and that's how I have the most intimate conversations with some of my neighbors.
Yeah. There's
Um,
something very cozy about it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So I think that said, it does depend a lot where in the world you're talking.
Mhm.
I think the vernacular architecture of these different regions. So what the way
Mhm.
that people traditionally design structures or villages,
Right.
I think looking at those patterns can teach us a lot about what might be an appropriate design for the region where you live.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite all-time architecture books is A Pattern Language by Christopher
Mhm.
Alexander. And this book is kind of hard to find. He's written a lot of books. I'm sure you can find some things on the internet, but it's basically a collection of patterns. So Christopher
Mhm.
Alexander was an architect who traveled the world going to remote villages that still honored their timeless ways of building and design.
Mm.
And over his travels to see all these villages, he collected what he thought were a distillation of, I think there's 200 to 300
Oh, yeah.
patterns. So, are you familiar with this book?
No, no, but I
Look
love
it.
the ideas,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
feels like
yeah,
something I can go down a
yeah.
rabbit hole on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And pattern languages, just as a concept, are so great because you can pull things that work for your
Hmm.
context in your life. So he talks a lot about, oh, I mean, the book goes from designing whole cities and districts all the way down to the very mundane. Where do you hang that picture of grandma on the wall? And how many windows
Yeah.
should you have in each room? So it's very comprehensive and also looking at the whole life cycle of a human. Because that's a
Hmm.
lot of what community,
Yeah.
multi-generational community, which I think you want to create, is about
Yeah.
looking at the human life from birth through all of our milestones and death, and how do we support people in a village context through those life phases.
Yeah. I saw that you have like a worksheet for people to like make a wish list, right?
Oh,
And you
yeah.
do like matchmaking services for people who are trying to find intentional communities. It's like, are these patterns part of that process anywhere?
Mm.
Like, do you assign people based on certain patterns or like what are, I'm curious if, yeah,
Mhm.
you've got your own sort of like reference
Mhm.
system for like
Mhm.
this type of person is going to do really well with this kind of vibe, this kind of
Yeah,
template.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I guess I do. Yeah. I actually have a blog article about, I think it's the 8 or 9 types of people who tend to be drawn to intentional community. Yeah,
Mhm.
that writing that article was definitely a distillation of what I've noticed when working with a
Yeah.
broad sweep of people. Yeah, yeah, because you definitely have your, I would call it like family oriented, young parents with kids wanting to create community. Maybe I see that in
Yeah.
you and your what you're trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can have elders who are looking for community and a sense of purpose for their later years and
Mm,
value. So obviously in our culture, we don't treat elders as elders, we treat them as the elderly.
mm,
So we have people who maybe have more of an activist orientation, who want to try to change the world through living in community and be part of a community that's very service oriented.
mhm.
You can have somebody who's looking for more of a spiritual connection in community. And of course, community living for some people can be the greatest teacher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting to rub up against other people and look into
Mm.
mirrors around you and learn more about
Oh,
yourself.
yes.
And yeah, and a lot of those kind of more spiritual oriented communities are also retreat centers. So maybe they have a business model around welcoming people and inviting them in to learn. So yeah, I could go on, but definitely there are some
Yeah.
types.
Yeah, that healing and transformation, like, archetype definitely defines a lot of the folks who get attracted to, like, Gapangan in Thailand,
Yeah.
and so that's definitely, like, showing up there. But
Yeah.
I think you also have kind of, like, techno-optimists, people who wanna, like, do better, and, like, a fairly sizable, like, more, like, very entrepreneurial community, I think, which, like, brings some balance, like, it's not just pure, like, hippie, we're gonna coast on vibes, it's like,
Mhm, mhm.
"Let's build something here."
Right, right.
Which I think is a nice marriage of like ethos, because a village, it takes a village means you need different types of folks, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, and that I'm glad you brought in that piece of more of the techno, maybe more futurist kind of
Hmm.
orientation, because I love that, and I think there's so many, subsets of the intentional communities movement and so
Hmm.
many theories of architecture and design. So I'm really drawn to the traditional side of thing, but then
Yeah.
you have, like, the solar punk people who are
Yes.
totally reimagining and coming up with these fantastical designs and geodesic domes and
Hmm.
utilizing sacred geometry and just going a different direction with it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I myself would be as drawn to live in that kind of design, but for some
Hmm.
people, they really gravitate towards it.
Yeah. I think that's why I like intentional communities, whereas like some people want to refer to the movement as like, oh, it's eco villages, or some people lump it under communes or something like that. Intentional communities sort of reminds you, it's like, oh, there are like all these different dials in life, and a lot of people are just coasting on like the default setting that someone else gave them, right? Like, what if you intentionally decide what works for you, which actually means that you end up with a lot of different variations, right?
Yes. Yes. And it doesn't need to look like upping and moving to an intentional community or building something on raw land. It could just look like more intentionally cultivating community in your life,
Hmm.
fostering deeper relationships with the people you do have in your circle, getting closer with your family or your coworkers, inviting people into your home to do activities, starting a community
Hmm.
garden. It can look so many different ways. And for some people, like they want to turn that dial all the way up and they really just want to be there in the
Yeah.
village. And they maybe want to join something that already exists. That's certainly the easier
Hmm.
path, or to create something new. And they feel
Yeah.
founders' energy and drive. They have the skill set,
Hmm.
capacity. So definitely, we need both. We need the pioneers and we need the settlers.
Yeah. Yeah. To have a very a flourishing market of lifestyle options, shall
Mm,
we say, right?
yeah, nice.
Yeah. And I saw that, yeah, going back to the intergenerational thing, I saw on your own personal wish list when you were deciding where you wanted to settle is you wanted to be somewhere that had like families, right? But I think at that time, and I'm not sure now, like, do you have children of your own yet? Or is that something that you just knew you wanted to be around?
Yeah, both. Yeah, I definitely wanted to be around, and I still don't have kids, but my fiance and I are getting married in August.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and yeah, and I hope to start a family relatively soon. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think even just being around kids and all the generations, it's so interesting how in default life you kind of get pigeonholed into your age group. Like the school
Yes.
system is like set up
Yes.
grades, all your friends are in the same grade, and then it kind of continues throughout your life. And I really, before living here, I did not have close daily interaction, certainly with kids.
Yeah.
And that's been such a blessing. I've really learned how to be with kids and how to
Yeah.
engage. So I think that's helped set me up for more success, hopefully later on.
Yeah. I bring that up because it's notable to me that you like sought that and like notice this generational like division thing. It kind of starts in grade school and it almost gets like more pronounced as you get older, right? You're sorted by life phase. I didn't realize until my husband kind of pointed it out and like we were new parents and we were kind of like the first in our friends to like have a baby. And so he was like, "Yeah, of course this is hard for us. Like we haven't like when's the last time you were around a baby?" And I was like, "Oh, right. Not since I was like 13, 14 years old and babysitting." And so we were just like separated from that whole part of life. So no wonder it was challenging to sort of shift gears.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you imagine in your mind, and I appreciate what you said about the beginning, not wanting to idolize traditional cultures. But at the same
Mm.
time, you can imagine what an intact village dynamic would have looked like.
Oh yeah.
Of you just seeing little kids running around and you see people parenting and you get to step in and be a
Yeah.
parent, for them if needed at times. That just
Yeah.
completely different system.
It definitely I've noticed the difference, like, how I sort of feel in public with kids when I've gone back to, like, the US to visit family versus being, like, here in Thailand or, like, neighboring Vietnam where, like, I've on multiple occasions, like, gone into a restaurant and there's some, like, auntie who comes out of the kitchen and just be like, "Oh, can I take your baby to go play in the courtyard?" And, like, my husband and I actually get to, like, sit and eat our meal rather than we're, like, juggling the food with toddler hands, which is kind of the normal parents' experience of, like, trying to dine out with small humans. And it is, like, just having the culture and just, like, the presence and just people who still have those skills around, like, makes such a difference, right? We're just a lot out of practice, a lot of us.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Beautiful. Yep. So much of just relearning how to be
Yeah,
humans and how to be in community.
seriously.
Yep.
It is. It feels silly, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, you try to talk about this to someone who's, like, never lived out of the community, they're just like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's going on? Like, are you a child? Like,
Yeah,
we're just
yeah.
like, yeah, we're kind of just like naive again because we're focused on so many other things for so long, right?
Mhm.
Civilizationally, kind of.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. And, one of the things that I remind people of who are maybe a little skeptical of community is this is how we lived for eons and eons and eons up until just very, very recently.
Yeah.
We evolutionarily are designed for community. We're hardwired for connection. It's something that
Yeah.
we need for our physical, mental well-being and health.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense that we're trying to rekindle that.
Yeah. I'd had just like really good experience living in like warehouse communities, stuff like that. So like I was sort of into that whole idea of like co-living when I sort of had my feet in like nomad scene.
Nice.
And so I knew I liked this. Like I knew it felt good to be around people. And I always was like seeking that more. But definitely once I became a mom and I was like, oh my God, like I need to like build my village like from scratch,
Mhm.
right? It became like a real sense of just like real need. And I think that's what I also have like reflected on just thinking about community is like it's actually that vulnerability, that human vulnerability. And like some people are good at cultivating that kind of like openness of heart that helps them to like have good, engaging, warm relationships. And so wherever they go, they have community, right?
Mm.
But it's also kind of at those vulnerable times when you need community the most that can also feel like really hard or scary to like reach out.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I feel like a lot of my experience has been there's people have a harder time asking for help than receiving it actually, which is, people say a lot of things about like human nature and how selfish we all are. But personally, in my experience, it kind of is the loss of community is almost because we're trying to be like too like, oh, I don't want to burden you. But it's
Yes.
actually sort of part of our wiring.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's really a subtle noticing. Yeah. Yeah, not only wanting to not burden others, but wanting to feel independent and resourceful. I think
Hmm.
and I wish I did a little research into this for the book, but it was kind of hard to pull out the pieces. But at least I could say
Yeah.
anecdotally, my experience is that sometimes people who have more wealth and material wealth
Hmm.
and abundance, they can rely on themselves to, if they
Hmm.
need to fix their car, they just take it to the mechanic and they pay somebody. But if you
Yeah.
don't have that money, you're going to ask your neighbor who is pretty handy if he can take a look at your car. You're going
Right.
to, ask your neighbor to borrow something if you need it or to get help. You're just a little bit more in that position of perhaps needing to ask, whereas
Hmm.
somebody who has more wealth then doesn't need to. But then that person who doesn't
Yeah.
need to misses out on the community and
Yeah.
the real authentic ways that community can support each other. Um,
Yeah.
because yeah, I think we can talk about community in this theoretical sense, but where it becomes practical is like just a few weeks ago, my fiance got his car stuck in a snow pile at the top of the hill. And, what are we going to do? I'm like calling all these neighbors. Finally, my neighbor comes with his car and pulls him out. And, it was an embarrassing situation. He was very
Aw.
stuck because he was kind of like just turning around. He didn't need to get stuck, but he did. And
Right.
that's that vulnerability of, okay, we're in this weak position and we need to ask for help. But then,
Yeah.
he comes help. And then later, we give him a case of beer as a thank you. And, there's just that little strengthening of that bond
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. No, we had something similar happen. We had like a deluge and a very localized flood,
Okay.
and our car got stuck. And we were new to this neighborhood, but my husband like had one friend that he knew nearby who had a truck, and so he calls them to like come tow our car out. And it was just this moment, it's like one of many little moments where actually like because he was helpful and he continues to like want to be helpful, it's like I feel like he almost like likes us more because we call for him to help. And this is actually I forget the name of the effect, but it's actually been documented, which is why I really think like, right, humans were wired to like live in villages because this is a thing that happens in our brain. You would think that by like the logic that humans are selfish, that like, oh, if you need me so much, I'm gonna like you less. But actually, like the opposite goes on, right?
Yes,
Like our
yeah.
brains actually see that and like respond to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know it can be a hurdle. Like, I have days
Yeah,
where I am wanting to be more introverted, and I'm just wanting to order the damn thing on Amazon instead of going to ask somebody, it's, it's interesting to notice those patterns, and I think there's also a perception that people who live in community must be always extroverted and always into
Mm,
connection and socializing.
yeah,
And actually, we found that more introverts live in community because
yeah,
they want to have that social connection intentionally built into their lives because they maybe struggle to always get it just
totally.
naturally in the more default world.
Yeah, the last podcast episode I recorded was with a friend who runs co-living for digital nomads, and that was his same observation: is actually more introverts book than extroverts. So the extroverts find friends wherever they go, right?
Yes.
It's the introverts who just want to maybe systematize it a bit.
Yes, 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 indeed. Oh,
Yeah. And so you said you moved into Headwaters in 2019, was it?
yep.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like, it's an interesting moment because I feel like I've sort of learned more about this community and a lot of this, like, in more recent years. And a lot of the conversations I've had on the podcast is like a lot of folks have like the pandemic as their kind of like red pill moment. They're like, wait,
Mm.
why am I doing this? Like, let's rethink everything. But you like settled in and then watched the world sort of like do a bit of a weird social
Yeah.
systems
Oh, oh,
explosion.
man. Oh,
So I'm
man.
curious, like, yeah, like how like looking out at the world and how people are living, since you were very intentional about your situation and you sort of been sort of a professional in this like business of communities for
Mhm.
a while, like what trends have you observed, like
Mhm.
anything that's come and gone in waves, like yeah, just on
Hmm.
that end, just looking at the timing and like maybe as far as like what's topical, like if there are things that come up.
Yeah. Whew, that's a great question. Yeah, yeah, I've been in this community space for, I mean, almost 2 decades. I visited my first
Mhm.
intentional community when I was 15. I was
Oh,
in
wow.
yeah, a place in North Carolina called Turtle Island, and it was very focused on, Native American lifeways and learning about that, and there was a small residential community in addition to the education center there. And that really set me off on a journey of like, oh, I just want to, even though I was still finishing high school and then college, I actually
Mhm.
did my degree for university in a school that allowed me to travel. It was a low risk school called
Interesting.
Goddard. So I was able to, yeah, visit communities all around the world, and that kind of just was my pattern for a while and then grew into a profession. And then once you're like in the network, you have to go to all the events and
Yeah.
conferences and board meetings. And then whenever I would do that, I would add on additional trips to visit communities nearby. So yeah, so when I came to joining Headwaters, where I live currently, that was after a number of years of already living in community. And then, yeah, I joined and COVID happened, but I was still kind of building my house. So I was part time, back and forth. Very
Mhm.
thing to be like building a house during that time.
Oh, oh gosh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And just, we were like, hurry, buy the wood. The wood prices are spiking. And oh, man. Um, so, yeah, to answer your question, trends. Well, certainly one of the lingering, and there's many, but one of the lingering effects of COVID uh, was the rise of remote work.
Mhm.
and people being able to, for the first time, not be tethered to a location because of their job.
Yeah.
And that really has freed up people to reconsider where they want to live and who they want to live with. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of the folks who I work with who I get a lot of people who are retiring or about to retire, but a lot of people who are like, I can work anywhere, help me find those people who align with my values. So that was a big change, I think. And then just
Mhm.
that time of COVID being so disruptive to people's normal way and
Yeah.
really like shaking things up in their mind, cracking open some new possibilities for what could happen for their future. And now we have a lot of different crises, but one of them is the affordable housing crisis. I
Totally.
don't know how
Yeah.
it is in your region of the world, but yeah, it feels like it's a somewhat global phenomenon as we have more development, land becoming scarce, housing stock becoming scarce for a variety of reasons. And I'm not so much focused on the reasons for the crisis, but what are some solutions? And I definitely
Mhm.
think that looking at more communal forms of living can
Yeah.
create more affordable housing and also ways of life. We've been talking about childcare has a little bit touched
Yeah.
on it. That's one of the big benefits of living in community is having
Mm.
we're in our community with like half a dozen potential babysitters at any given time.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of ways in which sharing resources and living closer to people, you can reduce some of your living expenses, but also getting back to architecture and design. There's a lot that can be said for more communal ways of doing housing to save costs. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so those are a few of the patterns that I'm noticing. And then I guess now too with AI, and this was I had a whole section on this at the end of my book talking about, okay, what is the future of intentional community?
Okay.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's very interesting to see the response to AI and technology within communities.
Mhm.
Because intentional communities are just microcosms for all the things happening in the bigger world. So it's almost like
Yeah.
when you ask that question, it's like, well, every trend that's happening in the wider world shows up in these small little intentional
Yeah.
communities too. And some communities are very, we want nothing to do with it. Some communities are much more embracing.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're familiar, probably with traditional Dream Factory in Portugal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, we spoke
these
to Sam last season.
oh, excellent. Yeah, and these
Yeah.
more, DAO blockchain oriented communities. You mentioned that you've
Yeah.
had a few of them on your podcast. These kind of more visionaries around using technology to support community.
Mhm.
So yeah, those are some trends that I've been noticing.
Yeah. I think as a techie and as a parent, I'm kind of like a determined optimist.
Yeah.
I speak to lots of folks who no, I'd be like, okay, you're probably smarter than me, but like I refuse to buy into this like collapse narrative. Um, and I'm just like determined to look at the future as a good thing. Like we have problems, but like let's
Yeah.
steer the ship in
Yeah.
a nice
Right.
direction.
But
But yeah, I feel like remote work as a trend has been like very interesting. And because it's like a geographic unlock, right? Now people are free to express their preferences rather than their economic needs and like where they live. But to your point earlier, like where you choose to live also kind of determines like what kind of budget you have to commit yourself to, right? Like how many of the amenities are something that you have to go to the market for versus it's already kind of in place in a different way. The like commons still exist.
yeah.
Um, but I guess in terms of like thinking about like yeah, like what do you think about this idea of just like AI automation just like bringing like mass abundance? Like I feel like people who live in community are actually like much better prepared to deal with that
Mm,
than say like society at large
mm,
cuz I don't know. I think a lot of people try to find like they find their meaning in their work now that's kind of become like another weird 21st century default. And if your work is at risk of like being taken away from you, do you still have something that like is meaningful in your life? And if you
Yeah.
have a family, if you have a community, I think some of those questions are answered a little bit better. If you're like tied to the land and that's part of your purpose and your legacy,
Yeah.
like I don't know. Yeah. Like your thoughts on like, yeah, what did you discuss in your book with regards to like AI in the future? What are some of your thoughts there?
Huh. Huh. Yeah, it's interesting this idea AI could bring mass abundance. Because who knows what's going to happen in the future.
Hmm.
And some people do have more of a dire outlook that AI won't
Yeah.
bring such
Yeah.
abundance. And
Hmm.
and it's interesting, in the short term. Oh, I think we're seeing a lot of people who are losing their jobs, and who
Hmm.
are yeah, as you said, losing jobs and not seeing that abundance flip side of it. Um,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like I don't know. It's a tool and it's a
Hmm.
technological revolution. We've gone through big ones in the past, the Industrial Revolution, uh,
Hmm.
and it's sort of what we make of it and how we use that
Yeah.
tool. And the values that are instilled in the technology. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, in society at large, we have a very strong war orientation, I guess, and
Hmm.
the military industrial complex might use AI for nefarious purposes. And I'm
Hmm.
hopeful that there are people like the folks at Collaborative AI and others who are looking at how can we instill more altruistic values and
Yeah.
support this AI and this technology towards creating more human flourishing and cooperation. And yeah, so that's one angle of it on the societal level. But my position is like, irregardless of all that, I still want a living community. I
Yeah.
mean, who cares what happens in the not who cares, but
Yeah.
like my life is centered here with the folks around me and the care and
Yeah.
support we give each other.
Yeah. I think it's a smart bet, like either way, you know? So like it's interesting because sometimes I'm in like my little like very online, very techie world, right? Like the mechanism for like why AI automation can bring about abundance, even though there's definitely like a short-term hurt of like adjustment period, but it's not that much different from like the industrial revolution and how we've adopted technology before. The idea being that like energy and electricity. It's like very expensive at the start, but as we find more utilities and we grow a whole economy around it, like as the cost of energy goes down, it just makes like material like standards for everyone go up. It becomes more accessible.
Uh-huh.
And so if you look at like the cost of computing and the cost of like knowledge and
Wow.
and like knowledge work, if you basically bring that cost down a lot, there's an argument being made that that's like the mechanism by which like a lot of material abundance can be raised, right? Similar to how electricity power sort of worked. But
Right.
I think like in the very positive scenario that like folks like Elon are right about that, like then yeah, living in community, if like you don't have to work, if like we have to completely redefine like what work is and like what the economy is,
Right.
I feel like you're safer in community.
True.
If it all turns out to be disaster, you're probably still better off living in community, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, and I think one of the things that living in community does is kind of reprioritizes what's important in one's life.
Yeah.
Um, with relationships really at the top of the list. And
Mm.
these other things like I think for a lot of people who are already living a comfortable life in the Western world, that looks like having your car and your house and all your things and then just like acquiring more and more things and it's sort of a reprioritization of what does bring happiness. It's not the things.
Yeah.
So it's the people and the relationships that you cultivate, not only with other people, but with place and that
Hmm.
purpose, like you were speaking to. So yeah, keeping the focus there is definitely going to be a good bet for the future, as you
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're a weirdo? Do you feel like you're like this like radical person? Do you feel like
Yeah.
the folks that you like consult for are like so out of the norm, or like do you feel normal
Mm.
in this whole like
Right.
milieu?
Mhm. It's so interesting. I think for most of my life, I have felt like a weirdo. Yeah, and definitely with my family, because my family is very mainstream, like super duper
Hmm.
mainstream. I don't know how how I came out this way, but like, well, my parents had corporate jobs, and I have a sister. She's like following like right in their footsteps and working at the same corporation as my mom, and has an apartment in the city. And so I think I see myself through their eyes often, and
Hmm.
probably not the best thing for my mental health, but I do. And like, and for them, I see how, yeah, they're like thinking I'm weird and this whole thing I'm into is
Yeah.
super weird. So I'm aware of that, spectrum of things on that end. But then certainly with the people I work with and the friendships I've cultivated, and really feels like this growing network of people who are
Hmm.
interested in intentional community. For them, I feel very comfortable and more like
Yeah.
the leading edge, not like
Yeah.
the weirdo. So, yeah, it's interesting, like that idea of these different cultures that we can
Yeah.
relate to.
It's just like I feel like this idea that like, oh, I just want to like live next to my best friends is just so millennial coded. It's just like so normal
Mm,
that you just sort of like, wait, but then why doesn't it happen more? Where's the friction? Where's the rub?
yeah.
But it is kind of just like we also live in an era of just like so much choice and optionality, right? So like even like literally choosing where you are is like that becomes a whole system to optimize for, much less all the other things you might want for yourself in your life.
Yes, yes, yeah, it's a lot of choice. Yeah, indeed.
Hmm.
Yeah, a lot of choice and a lack of good models for how to do that,
Mm.
how to live with your friends beyond the college dorm
Mm.
room. Like, well, how does that
Right.
translate into adulthood and family life and building a career and also living in community? So I'm hopeful. I think a lot of the stereotypes are starting to change. There's been a lot of
Yeah.
positive press in the mainstream media outlets lately. The New York Times did a positive piece, and other outlets, and so I think it's starting a shift of that awareness of, oh, if I want to live in community, that doesn't mean a hippie commune in the woods necessarily. Some people
Yeah.
really like
Yeah.
that, but for a lot of people, it's gonna look more, comfortable, more familiar, getting back to more
Hmm.
traditional, old-fashioned neighborhood kind of situation. So, yeah, I'm hopeful for the future that people will, um, have that option and see good models for how that could occur and really set out to pursue that in their own life.
Yeah. I'm curious for yourself, you lived this lifestyle, if we like assign that label to it for a while, like you live in community, you're in the business of community, you like help other people find community, you've written the book on community, like it really seems like this is like part and parcel, like Cynthia Tina is community. Like how do you
Gotta
feel
change
about
my
that? Like is
name.
that like
Or we got
that's like that's your is that
place.
like yeah, but it's like, it's like is that like your personal brand, and that like
Uh,
you have to cultivate it, right? For business purposes. And that's not something that I think is like bad or weird, is normal. But I'm just kind of curious. It's like you just like you live and breathe this thing. Like, do you ever like how do you think about that sometimes in terms of
yeah,
like your identity?
uh,
Like, do you ever feel like, I need to run away from this and just
uh,
like
huh,
go be myself for a while, or do you just feel like nurtured by it all?
hmm. Yeah, wow, that is such a good I really like that question. Yeah, let's see here. I think it feels pretty natural. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the cool things about being aligned with your
Mm-hmm.
life's purpose and your work and your daily life. It does feel like that's me. That's natural. I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't have to like change myself into somebody else to be the community
Yeah.
person. And I think one of the things I most appreciate, like the people in my community that I live with, they don't
Yeah.
necessarily like even know that I'm this big person in the community
Mm-hmm.
space. And we had at our last community meeting, I did give each of them a copy of my book, and I wrote something in it
Nice.
of them. And I think that was probably like one of their first like, oh, whoa, who is this community
Yeah.
member we have?
Right.
Um, so yeah, and I like that. I like that's one of
Mm-hmm.
the reasons why I chose this community, because I easily lived in Oroville or Shintorn or some of these world
Mm-hmm.
famous places where it would be a lot more, people and things to do and networking and such. But I'm very happy to live in this low key community that no one's heard of. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
remote part of Vermont. And then when I want to leave and travel, I go and I get on a plane and I go and do. And I get to have these conversations with you on my
Yeah.
computer. And it just feels like I feel like I'm in a good place with my life and my work. And yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so sort of with the career that you have with sort of like community being a dial that you sort of like know how to play with and like
Um,
your fiance is because I was creeping on you beforehand. Just good skills. Your fiance is he Slovenian? Am I remembering that correctly?
no, no.
No. Okay,
I
bad
need to
internet
update my
sleuthing.
stuff. Yeah, no, that was a relationship I was in for 7 years. And it was
Okay.
amazing, amazing. We're still great friends.
Mm-hmm.
Because that enabled me to live in Europe for long stretches of time,
Mm.
visit communities. So many trips to visit communities I made with that Slovenian partner. But no, my fiance, he is lives in Vermont. He's an American, and he well, now he lives in my house. But he
Yeah.
is not he's very interested in intentional community. We actually met on the Costa Rica Ecovillage tour, one of the first ones that we
Interesting.
did in Costa Rica. He was a participant, I was the tour guide, and he
Mm-hmm.
just happened to be from Vermont. We had so many things in common. And and then when we got back home, the relationship developed from there. And he is into natural vision improvement. That's
Oh, yeah, yeah.
his main
Interesting.
work, helping people get off glasses and see better just with natural relaxation techniques mostly. So that's like he's like a business owner and has his whole brand around
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's kind of cool that we can relate to being entrepreneurs and business owners, but in
Yeah.
different fields.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess what I kind of wanted to ask you is like thinking about your future, like how you're going to plan the geography side, but it feels like that part's solved for you. But you do bring up something that I think is very interesting is like partners, because I think for all that people, there's a certain group of people who are like very into this and it's not like a decision that you casually make to live in community. Like if you have a partner, if you're already married, like if you're seeking a partner, if you're already married, like that's something that you have to like really think about, right? So your partner he was already sort of on the fringe of this world, so
Yeah.
it wasn't, I guess, like too much to like pull him in.
Yeah.
What are those conversations like? Like, what do you think that yeah, because you're engaged, you're planning to build a future together. Like, what do you guys think that looks like here in community versus somewhere else? Do you think you'll stay in Headwaters?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, I gotta at least finish building this
Still gotta
house.
finish the house.
Right. Yeah, no, I am so set up here and happy. Like two of my closest neighbors are midwives.
Mm.
I've learned so much about parenting and being a parent here. Everyone's so excited for when that happens. And yeah, no, definitely this is who knows, I'm very open to things changing in the
Mhm.
future. I'm also pretty close. My parents are retired and they live like a 40-minute drive away, and that's good. We're just so rooted here, and
Yeah.
that's a big part of why I wanted to be here is like
Yeah.
I sink the roots even deeper. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I do work with a lot of couples who sometimes they're both on board with community. More often it's like one person in the relationship is really excited about it and not at all the other
Mhm.
person. And that's tough because
Yeah.
you can't like join a community and only have one half of the equation be like a
Yeah.
member. It doesn't work like that.
Totally.
So, and then I get a lot of people who are single and they're still looking for love and they're concerned if
Mhm.
they move into community prematurely, that then their options will be too limited. And that's just
Yeah.
completely not true. I mean, I've
Oh,
myself, yeah, lived in this isolated community in Vermont, and I've been single for periods of time. But life doesn't stop. You still get out there. You still
yeah.
go and do things and meet people as you would normally. It's not like you
Mm.
lose something by joining community. If anything, you gain
Yeah.
something, gain more of like a support system in your life to be able to, yeah, be single or to date or to pursue deeper relationship. I think it's a positive thing.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Just got to be able to both be on board.
Yes.
So what else do you do in your consulting then? So I get the sense you have like a matchmaker service, you sort of introduce people to this, you have like programs for people who are trying to design communities. Like what's like yeah, what are some of the like what's your bread and butter in like this world, or is there any particular service that you take like extra joy in bringing to people?
Oh, yeah. Well, I have two businesses.
Yeah.
One of them is Ecovillage tours, and we
Mhm.
run trips to visit communities around the world. We've run more than 20 trips at this point
Mhm.
in Costa Rica, the United States, India, throughout Europe. Uh, so really a global. Bali is the closest one we've done to your
Mm.
but we haven't done
Yeah.
the Thailand Ecovillage tour yet. So being like the CEO and running that company
Mhm.
is a big chunk of my time and
Yeah.
currently. So yes, that's definitely one thing. And I love seeing people go on trips and not just all this learning online about community, but actually going and visiting places and doing like what I
Yeah.
did, like having a communities tour and
Mhm.
getting to see these different models and compare and contrast, and then the bonding that happens with the traveling group. I
Mm.
love everything about what we've created, and it's just continuing to grow and expand. So a lot of my day to day with that is more like the more typical things of like running a company, like staff
Mhm.
dynamics and making sure we're staying, on top of our goals and yeah, customer service and all the little
Mhm.
fires that come up on the trips themselves.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's an emergency, call Cynthia. So, yeah, so that's that work. And then with community finders, that's more of
Mhm.
the education and the book I published through community finders, the courses. I would say the community matchmaking is sort of, I guess, the bread and butter. That's the
Mhm.
one work I do with clients.
Yeah.
I have worked with around 400 clients to date over, the past several years, it's been a lot of those one-to-one conversations. And I'm sort of in this moment of re-envisioning that a little bit. I'm doing less work
Mhm.
overall. And I've yeah, I definitely I have an old online course. I'm working on a new version of that. But trying to create more resources for people to help themselves in finding
Yeah.
community. Um, Definitely, I think that maybe AI could play a role in this, in more of that automated matchmaking.
Mhm.
That's maybe a later project down the road, but I'm thinking about these things because,
Oh, no, like, you set up the agent correctly, that'll be done for you in 3 hours.
yeah,
Um
yeah, I've tried. I've tried. It's maybe I haven't set it up correctly enough, but it still seems like I just have the relationships and the inside knowledge of
Yeah,
the culture of each of these places, and that's so
I hear
hard to
you.
replicate with a piece of technology.
Yeah, because like, without it being able to, like, fully download your mind, like and it has the book now, right? So that's great, but there's still a lot of knowledge packed up in there, right?
Yeah.
No, it's like it feels like a very, familiar playbook. I feel like, you're one of now a series of, I think, like, smart women I know who are, like, getting ready to do the family thing and setting
Mhm.
themselves up by just being like, "I'm gonna write a book because I can't talk to people like this anymore."
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, I don't know if you intentionally did it with that in mind, but I'm sort of,
Yeah.
like, seeing a pattern.
It was very much so like, I don't think I'd be able to write this book and have small children in my life. I need to, like, have this
Mhm.
quiet chunk of time and just get it done and out there, and yeah, and that is a lot of what I'm focused on this year is, how to, yeah, delegate and get off my plate as much as I possibly can to have a little bit more freedom and flexibility for the future. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for
Mhm.
sure. And I guess, picking your professional brain here, I read in one of your blogs, you're bringing up something that like a leader at like, I think Dominer was bringing up, that like it's helpful for people to think of their community like a business, that can be something that really contributes to its longevity, how have you like what are some of your observations across the spectrum? Do you see like what's the business model or set of business models, like underlying fundamentals that you think really help power success? Because a lot of people, especially from the outside, might assume that this is like and all intentional communities are like communes and that you have to like put all your money in there and like that's it. And
Mhm.
but there's actually like so many different ways that people do
Yeah.
governance, manage economics, buy in or not.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there are a few different models. I would say most intentional communities are, mm, the finance people's finances are separate. Like, not like a commune is a very specific form of intentional community. There's
Yeah.
not that many of them actually. There's probably only a
Hmm.
dozen or so globally that are really doing the commune of a shared business, or pooling all of the income that one makes from their own job into a shared thing and buying everything together, and each person gets
Hmm.
a little stipend. That is a that's on a far end of the spectrum. Most
Yeah.
intentional communities have individuals with private financial lives and then choosing how they want to commingle some things for shared purposes.
Hmm.
Typically, that looks like a membership due, like you would find at a homeowners
Hmm.
association. Actually, community where I live, we are structured as a homeowner association, an HOA.
Hmm.
We use that legal structure and do something completely different with that. We do our own
Yeah.
community. But each month, we each pitch in a certain amount of money, and that goes towards the common pot that then we decide how we want to spend, usually on road maintenance, on the gardens, some
Hmm.
infrastructure improvements. We're building a new barn right now for the chickens. That's been our main
Nice.
priority. So that's kind of the most typical way. I think also
Mhm.
in the startup phase, a residential intentional community is its own can have its own business model because obviously when you start the community, there's money needed for improvements to the land, bringing in water,
Yeah.
sewer, whatever road, and making these building sites for homes to be built on. So there's a variety of ways that communities do that,
Mhm.
privately or with nonprofit support or government support to try to build up
Mhm.
residential. So that's one model. It's like just a purely
Yeah.
residential community. Then there's this whole other dynamic category of communities that actually have a business component, whether it's
Mhm.
cottage industry or a retreat center, educational center, hospitality service. It really, I mean, I've seen, I recently saw a community in Texas there, the residential community plus a beekeeping operation, and the beekeeping,
Ah,
like their whole business dynamic, would complement the residential piece. So yeah,
ah.
so I
You can get creative.
yeah, yeah, there's, so many different models, but those are kind of the
Mhm.
3 different buckets I would say I've seen
Yeah.
communities do it, and I think that quote from Dom and Her from Falco was really, speaking to the mindset of, like, thinking through like a
Yeah.
business, most businesses fail within their first year, so do most communities. And so it's really helpful to think through, yeah, what is going to set us up for success and how are we going to sustain ourselves financially? Um, and it's a
Yeah.
community to figure that out.
Yeah. No, definitely in my own, education phase, just looking into the world of sustainability, right? And now, like, here in this world of intentional communities and eco villages, a lot of people seem really attracted to like the environmental aspect or something like that. And like, so the word sustainability will come up a lot, but it's as you just use it, how are you going to sustain your community long term? Something is like, I feel like the fundamentals sometimes.
Mm,
I imagine this is one of the challenges of like getting something off the ground is figuring out how you're going to navigate those priorities.
yeah. Yep, 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 yep. And I would say, kind of like what you're doing with your project, you're focusing first on the shared culture, you're doing
Mhm.
events, you're having potlucks and meals together, you're getting to know each other. Because
Yeah.
that's the thing, like a committed, creative group of people, you can solve most challenges. It's
Mhm.
not going to be the finances that stop you necessarily. It's going to be the
Yeah.
breakdown of your internal communication and how
Mm.
you overcome such challenges.
But how do you see those things start? Because, like, in our case, we had like a founder who was very committed to this, knew that he wanted to live in it, has experience in real estate. So it wasn't like a crazy thing for him to go find this resort, take it over, and like be the one to take that on to bring it to the community to so be the founder in that respect. But like some people may have good founder mentalities, skills, networks, but not the finances themselves. So like you do need money to get land, right? So how do you see people solving that problem like typically? And like I wonder if like America is different than in Europe or
Yeah, yeah, there are some differences. Yeah, yeah, I think in Europe there's lot more funding available from the
mm,
EU, from yeah, government, a lot more support for the eco village.
yeah.
Typically when communities get started, there are two pathways. There's kind of the founder-led pathway, and then there's the group pathway, I might call it.
Mhm.
And so that's how our community got started was the founder way. Very similar story.
Yeah.
Our founder had resources. She bought this land. She was able to do the bureaucratic dance to make it possible to have a development here. And then we each, when we bought in, we essentially were paying her back.
Mhm.
And then eventually she did end up leaving because she did not have maybe the community she created became different than
Mm,
perhaps what she had envisioned, or that would it's just a she's a community starter. She's not a settler, you know.
yeah.
So she
Interesting. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
she
Well, that's generous.
project and yeah,
Yeah.
try to be generous. There's obviously many frictions and dynamics in a
Yeah.
founder departing. But sometimes you need like a project needs that founder energy and somebody who just
Yeah.
can make it happen. Because if you're starting as a group, typically that's a slower process and it does involve seeking raising capital if you don't have it through fundraising, through maybe some members of the group pitching in more initially, um,
Mhm.
and doing a property search together, deciding what you
Yeah.
want, going out
Yeah.
and finding the land. It's slower, it's more complex, but it also can create a more sustainable community for the long run. Because the
Yeah.
founder can come in and do all these things, and then the founder
Mhm.
leaves prematurely, it can really rock,
Yeah.
oh gosh. So those two approaches have pros and cons, and that's typically the two
Mhm.
ways I've seen communities get started.
Yeah. And I'm curious, so one of the things that we want to try with Amagi is so we've chosen a track. We're attached to like a particular piece of land, but with like a larger vision, right? Is we want to be part of a network. And the thing that kind of binds the network together is wanting to try like equity differently.
Mhm.
Because when people look at housing, the options they're usually presented with are to rent or to own,
Mhm.
right? And that comes with its own like set of expectations. Ownership means one thing, renting means something else. Like in betweens become this whole thing that like um to what you mentioned earlier, like how do we live together? Like people just don't have the archetypes for that, so it just feels weird. But for us, the idea is like if you can invest more upfront, and then basically like depending on how much you invest, then your rent is either like might be entirely free or it might be like heavily discounted,
Mhm.
right? So even though you're buying in, it's sort of counted as rent in a certain way. But on the other hand, people who can't afford to make a big financial commitment upfront can rent, can sort of put in some amount of sweat equity,
Yeah,
and like even though it's just rent, it's like it counts towards equity as something like you earn towards.
great.
So that's something that's still like I'm not particular, like I'm not strong in the particulars of like the token and everything that we're trying to like set up with, but I'm just curious, just as like a broad concept, as someone who's like been in this space and seen a lot of different playbooks, like
Well,
what do you think of that? Do you think this like this idea has any chance of working?
yeah, no, I think it does, and I'm thinking of similar models. Um,
Yeah.
Sounds similar to the co-buying with friends. Phil
Mhm.
from Super Nuclear, he's in the
Oh, yeah, yeah.
fish community, and they did something very similar when they were starting out, and he's built a whole model and framework around it. Um, yeah, no, it sounds like a very complex math equation. So
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
you have
But we
somebody.
got we got math nerds, like, don't
Okay,
worry.
great. Awesome. Yeah. That's something that I could figure out. But yes, I think that yeah, something like that would be and you do see versions of that in mixed income communities where you have some people who
Yeah.
have more resources and another version of that is the person with more resources is able to make a friendly loan
Mhm.
to somebody with less. That happened in our
Yeah.
community. We had a family who we really wanted to have join and
Yeah.
didn't quite have enough to be able to buy in. And but then they were able to get this loan from a neighbor on good terms. And so it's a
Yeah.
similar, you're kind of paying it forward to the next person and
Mhm.
trying to reimagine equity as you said and balance out the scales because we live in a world that is so economically stratified and some people have
Mhm.
so much and some people don't, and so how do you through the mechanism of living in community try to make that work out for everyone. um I guess one thing I would just encourage thinking through is the exit plan.
Yeah.
So yeah, how, well, if somebody wants to leave at any point in time, what happens with their equity and that
Hmm.
wealth and that money they put in, and how would that change the calculation for everyone else?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think in our case, we've got a lot of folks who have come from like the startup or like crypto communities.
Yeah.
So those are the probably like equity exit sort of playbooks templates that we're like closest to. But like, I definitely hear you. I think that you can have a dream of like living the community forever, but like if you lock people in and they don't know how they could hypothetically get out, like how do you like
Yeah.
how do you overcome that burden? It's like,
Well,
wait, like no, the only thing that like people do forever is like get married. And even that is like a thing that has like a
yeah.
you know, defined exit path. So like
Mhm.
choosing to live somewhere, choosing to buy into a community. I
Oh,
definitely hear you. It's like, what's the out?
yeah, yeah. Oh, and it doesn't always, I mean, things just happen in life. Somebody gets sick, somebody has to go take
Yeah,
care of an aging parent. I mean, doesn't always mean that there's
totally.
something wrong with the community. And
No.
and thinking through another form of exit in life, what happens with inheritance as well.
Yeah.
That's another, yeah, piece to think.
Yeah. Yeah, have you seen, some of the longer running communities? Like, have you seen ways that that's handled well or not? Because I think, there's a lovely idea to sort of build something that your kids will want to inherit, right? But even people who grow up in community don't necessarily end up all choosing that for themselves, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's tricky. Yeah, each case is so different. Yeah, it's just important to be really specific about what you want to have happen. So usually, in the case of an inheritance, let's say the child inherits the home and the
Hmm.
community, and if they want to stay in there, that's great. It's a little bit like they still need to go through some sort of membership process and vetting
Hmm.
process.
Okay, so
That
still keep that in place. You're
that
not immediately grandfathered in.
I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Legally, you're not really able to evict somebody from their home if they've
Hmm.
inherited that home. But I think there are things that a community can do to try to determine a good fit, because you want to have
Yeah.
a fit. And hopefully through that membership process, if it was determined it's not really a good fit, that there would be some way for the community to have the first option to buy, the first right of refusal on who comes
Hmm.
in next, so that the membership process can stay intact. Because what you want to avoid is losing that control as a community of who comes in. Because the membership process is one of the most important processes that a community
Mm.
has. Because we've seen often the biggest conflicts, the most irreconcilable conflicts within community, are because the membership process wasn't strong enough to determine a good fit
Mm.
and a values fit from the beginning.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're in a situation right now in our communities. This is top of mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we have somebody who just, he was sort of railroaded through the membership process, and it really wasn't a good fit. And then we're seeing repercussions of that years later, when it's so hard because that person is so established in their home and it's their home.
Yeah.
Can't remove somebody from their home. So
Yeah.
that's tricky. No,
Yeah.
very
So
complex.
more work on the front end to save yourself heartache later.
Yeah, yeah, if possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of little tricky little bits to figure out, but it's nice that it definitely seems like there's like a playbook emerging. You're one of like many people who can like give guidance on this topic. Not everyone has to like start from scratch anymore. We
Yeah,
live in the era of the internet.
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's easier than ever to find community, to create communities. There's just so much good road that's been paved from people long before you and I, so this is great.
Yeah. And, just a kind of a fun question.
happy for you to interpret in a very open-ended way. But let's say, Cynthia is tapped to be like the czar of housing. And it's like you get to decide how America is going to address its like housing affordability crisis. Like, what's the platform? Have you thought about this?
I don't know. I think I should. I would. Oh my. Oh, there's so many problems. Speculative real estate
Hmm.
market, the anonymity, like we've been talking about. I think a few things I could put in place are sort of the, I don't know, I'll be creative here. So
Yeah.
that could be really cool is to mandate that people have an opportunity to meet their neighbors before they buy the home. I think
Hmm.
that simple thing would change so much about how people live in homes, especially in apartment buildings. They don't know the people.
Yeah.
They don't know the people.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I think that it should just be part of the process that before you buy something, that you get a chance to meet everyone. And maybe it could be
Mhm.
like a social thing. Like there's just more social activities where people
Yeah, that this should be like a
are.
cultural practice,
Yes.
like that we put in place.
Yes. Yes.
It does seem like a very sane ritual.
Yeah, I think it could go over well. Who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe a lot of people, if oh, you have a barking dog. Okay, I'm not going to move into this place. Or, oh, you believe this. Okay, well, that's interesting. Maybe I can come around to that and we'll find some common
Mhm.
ground. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it would play out, but I think that would be a very good thing for the times that we live in.
Yeah,
uh,
know your neighbor.
yeah, know your neighbor. The know your neighbor platform.
All right, it all starts there.
Yes, yes.
And yeah, trickles down into people living in community and feeling like feeling like a more sane system.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes. Bringing the
Yeah.
human element.
Well, yeah. Um, just curious, in closing then, like, yeah, what are your plans, like, going into the next couple months? Any, like, interesting community projects that you'll be visiting? Any folks to particularly get on the radar, or just are you sort of enjoying some quiet time now that you've published the book?
Yeah. I actually am coming back from a fair bit of travel. I was in Costa Rica for a few weeks. I led a retreat there and supported with one of our Ecovillage tours. So yeah, I am looking forward to spring in Vermont. It's a big season. I really want to finish my house more. Uh,
Yeah.
like we got to get this plaster on the walls, and we have this sort of makeshift kitchen right now. We need a real kitchen, and getting ready for the wedding. I have my probably when I sign up, you have to
Mm.
walk down to the mailbox, and I should have all my seeds that I'm going to plant
Ooh.
flowers for my wedding. So I'm excited for the gardening season and the community effort that putting on a wedding
Yeah.
is.
Is that gonna be on the property? Like, are you
Not
guys
here,
having the
but
wedding there, or
my parents' land. Yeah, yeah, so not too far away.
Nice.
Yes, yes. And then otherwise, no, no community. I am gonna be hosting the Vermont Ecovillage tour. I do that every year in July. So
Cool.
that's kind of like the one opportunity people have to come visit my place and to tour around Vermont with me and visit some of my favorite communities and dear friends in my court
Yeah.
world. And then, yeah, I think just yeah, a little bit more of a quiet, more rooted time. And like I said to you earlier, figuring out a way for all of my endeavors to continue, even if I'm less intimately involved in the day to day. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, certainly understand that.
Yeah.
Well, Cynthia, it's been really fun getting to know you and just like thank you so much for like sharing the nuts and bolts of this. I know you do it all the time and like here I am inviting you to be a guest and say, "Hey, give me free info." But I think, you just have such like a generous spirit and I can see that like these are fun conversations
Oh,
for you
yeah.
to have, right? I've been having a lot of fun here.
Yeah, me too. So much fun. Thank you so much, Lily. I think you asked excellent questions, and no, really, it's good because it gets me thinking about things in different ways, and I really
Totally.
appreciate what you're doing there with the community you're creating, and wishing you so much success with that. Like, really, yeah,
Thank
I
you.
do want to support. So if there's any way that I can help out, or would love to visit you all on an Ecovillage tour, maybe someday.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, when you're ready.
Okay, I don't know if you guys already have a honeymoon destination plan, like
Ooh,
Hangopangan, Thailand.
okay.
Lovely.
Good, yeah. It's been in the thinking. So
Yes, so many options.
yeah. Well, good.
All right. Well, thanks again, Cynthia.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Lily Zabo, and this has been the Amagi Village podcast. Amagi is an ancient Sumerian word for return to mother. It's also the earliest denotation of emancipation and freedom. Not freedom through escape, but through return, through restoration, integration, through rebirth. The world is quickly changing, and the myth of modernity is coming undone. Progress is not linear, and to thrive in the coming age, we can't keep living in the matrix and just hoping for the best. It's time to embark on bold experiments. We don't claim to know what the answer is, but we know it won't come from ideology. This isn't a cult, it's not a brand. Amagi is an invitation for those who don't just play with new ideas, but are ready to live them, to walk the talk, to build the future. The Amagi Village podcast documents our journey of discovery. We're learning in public from technologists and tribal elders, from philosophers and farmers. Let's reimagine the future together. Please visit amagi.life to learn more. That's amagi.life.